Okay, moving on to the last and final segment of today's show. We started today's show off with the Western Conference, breaking down the Game 7 from last night between the Denver Nuggets and the Utah Jazz, along with previewing the Game 7 of tonight's matchup between the Oklahoma City Thunder and the Houston Rockets. Those are both obviously in the Western Conference. And we are actually going to end today's show breaking down the Eastern Conference and the two current playoff matchups there. We'll start here in Game 1 of the series between Miami and Milwaukee, where the Miami Heat beat the Milwaukee Bucks by a final score of 115 to 104. And a lot of people have asked me, Zach, what are your opinions on the Milwaukee Bucks? And, going into these playoffs, there were a lot of people who did consider the Milwaukee Bucks to be, one of the NBA Finals contenders, possibly a team that could, really a team that should come out of the Eastern Conference. We all remember what happened to Milwaukee last year as they were the number one seed as they, same thing as this year. And Milwaukee actually, after going up 2-0 against the Toronto Raptors, lost 4 games in a row and were sent home by Kawhi Leonard and company. And when you look at this year's version of the Milwaukee Bucks, for the second year in a row, they really were clearly the best team in the Eastern Conference. And a lot of people said, yeah, even though they were good in the regular season, it's the playoffs, it's different. We haven't really seen Giannis ever be able to get the job done. And it's funny because for me, leading up to up until the season shut down, I was firm on the belief that the Eastern Conference is the Milwaukee Bucks conference to lose. They're a very good home team. I thought, my eye told me they were the best team out of any team in the East by a far margin. Overall, they played decent against Toronto during the regular season. They split with Boston, struggled a little bit against Miami. But when I looked at the Miami Heat, I was kind of like, I love Jimmy Butler. I like a lot of their key pieces, but I can't see Miami going into Milwaukee, beating them, multiple times. But now that the restart has happened and we are in the current circumstances that we are in, I think the Miami Heat have a realistic shot to beat the Milwaukee Bucks. And I actually said that before this Game 1. My pick before the series was Bucks in 7. I'm going to stick with Bucks in 7. But the more and more you watch these two teams play on the same floor, the more and more you're going to want to pick the Miami Heat. Because look at this Miami Heat team, man, and the way they're built. First of all, Pat Riley, any team that he is a part of wins. It's that simple. There is really no one else in basketball that you would rather have leading your team than Pat Riley. So he's unreal, and you can't be surprised at all how quickly he's turned around this Miami Heat team again. So shout out to Pat Riley. Eric Spoelstra as well. It's funny because when LeBron James first got to Miami, a lot of people were wondering, could LeBron and Spoelstra work? Is Spoelstra even this, is he that good of a coach? Is he a good enough coach to win an NBA championship? And I think we know the answer to that. He's phenomenal. He's one of the 5 best coaches in the NBA. And then let's get to the personnel. It's so interesting how the Miami Heat built this team because really before Jimmy Butler got here, there really wasn't much to be excited about. Like, you had Bam Adebayo, obviously, but he was still pretty raw his first couple of years in the league. And what I like about Miami here is everything has kind of came together in the right way. When you have Jimmy Butler as your top dog, and he's an alpha male, he's good enough to, win games by himself like he did the other night. You have Bam Adebayo. You have Bam has really developed into a nice role. He's finally peaked, I think. They also have really done a nice job developing some of their younger guys like Kendrick Nunn and Duncan Robinson, 2 guys that coming out of college, they weren't really expected to be much on the NBA level, and they've both been starters. They've both been very good. Tyler Hero, the first-round pick this year, the rookie out of Kentucky, he's been phenomenal. And what do these guys all have in common, especially Hero and Robinson? They're all shooters. So that's the first step, I would think, in order for Miami to pull the upset against Milwaukee. Shoot the 3 ball well. And the crazy thing is, in this game, they went 12 for 31. That's 38% from 3. That's nothing special. That's okay. And it's not great, to be honest, for this Miami Heat team that usually does shoot the 3 ball pretty well. But the thing about Miami is this. When you look at their defense and how exactly they match up against Milwaukee, and a lot of people have asked me, Zach, a lot of people have said on paper the Miami Heat do match up pretty well against the Milwaukee Bucks. And why is that? Well, I think it's because they're playing a 3-4-5 to close games of Andre Iguodala at the 3. We know what this guy has done throughout his career. He's a former Finals MVP. Jimmy Butler at the 4. We know what he could do on the defensive side of the ball and his closer and dog and killer mentality on the offensive side. And Bam at the 5. That is the exact lineup you need to shut down Giannis, or at least limit him. And when Miami's has guys that are making threes like Hero and Duncan Robinson and Kendrick Nunn, who's back, by the way. He was out for the first couple games of the bubble. You know, this series is his first action since the league has restarted. When you have all of those guys and they're making shots, especially better than Milwaukee's was, the way the Bucks were playing in the fourth quarter, if you're a Bucks fan, you have to at least be somewhat nervous about the way this series is going in. And game 2 is tonight. There are going to be a lot of key things to look out for. And for me, that one thing here is going to be, can guys like Chris Middleton and Brook Lopez, George Hill, Wesley Matthews, Pat Connaughton, guys like that, are those guys going to be able to play big-time minutes in the fourth quarter and knock down shots? Because, to be honest, I'm having a hard time believing that in the last 5 minutes of the game, if it's a close game especially, I would rather have Jimmy Butler with the ball in his hands in crunch time than Giannis. And if you ask why, just look at the track record. Jimmy Butler has shown he is capable of hitting tough shot after tough shot, in each game. You literally heard him say after the game, when he was interviewed, they asked him what was going through your mind in the last couple minutes of the game, and he said, I told my teammates I'm not passing the ball. And they were like, okay. And I think when you look at this Miami Heat team, that is a big reason as to why they gel and play so well together. To be honest, when you look at the Milwaukee Bucks, that was really throughout the regular season why everyone liked them so much and why I was really confident that they can make a big run and go to the NBA Finals and maybe even win a championship. But if you watch them since they've gotten to the bubble, something isn't right with this team. I don't know what's going on with Eric Bledsoe. He just isn't playing anymore. He's fallen out of the rotation. And as good as George Hill is, I don't know if he's good enough to be the starting point guard on an NBA championship winning team. And they couldn't make any threes late in the game. Chris Middleton, when you look at his numbers from the other day, in 37 minutes, he had 28 points, 6 rebounds, 5 assists. Brook Lopez in 27 minutes, 24 points, 1 rebound. Those numbers look pretty good. And the fact is that I'm calling them out. You would say, Zach, why are you calling out Middleton and Lopez if you just said their numbers were good? Well, the key is they made all those shots in the first quarter and a half. Really just the first half in general. In crunch time, in the fourth quarter, it was guys like Tyler Hero and Goran Dragic who dropped 27 in this game for the Miami Heat, and Bam Adebayo, who had 17 rebounds for the Miami Heat. It's guys like that who are making big shots, making big plays, and getting Miami the victory down the stretch. Milwaukee hasn't gotten that. And to be honest, we haven't really been able to see them get that since this bubble has restarted. And to be honest, I'm really looking forward to this game tonight because I think there is a totally realistic shot that the Miami Heat get the victory because they match up really well against them, and Jimmy Butler just right now is a flat-out better closer than Giannis. The other thing that would really have ticked me off if I were a fan of the Milwaukee Bucks was this. After the game, Giannis was asked if he wanted to switch onto Jimmy Butler in crunch time when Jimmy Butler was going off. He dropped 40 in total. That was basically when he told his teammates, I'm not passing the ball. And how did Giannis respond? He said, no, I didn't want to switch onto Jimmy Butler. Why would you ask that? Well, Giannis, the reason why he asked that was because you're the defensive player of the year and Jimmy Butler just had a career-high 40. My question is, why did you ask him? Why did he ask you that question? Like, honestly, man, you're the defensive player of the year. What do you mean? Shouldn't you be guarding him? And this is why, for me, I think Giannis looks a little frazzled, and I'm a little nervous about this Milwaukee Buck team. The fact is, since this Buck team has got to the bubble, Giannis has been getting into fights with irrelevant players like Mo Wagner on the Wizards, Donta Hall on the Nets. You're the Milwaukee Bucks. You're the number 1 seed. You're the MVP of the freaking league. Start playing like it, man. If the Heat win tonight, man, this series could be the Bucks could be in trouble. And if I were a Buck fan, I would be a little nervous. I think they win tonight, and this is where for me superstars come to perform. I believe Giannis is good as everyone hypes him up to be. He's a hell of a player, and he has absolutely deserved all the credentials on his resume from the past 2 years. He's the Greek freak. He's phenomenal. But at the same time, you can't truly say you're a superstar unless you have that big-time playoff moment. And I want to see him, it's not the NBA Finals. Keep in mind, it's only the second round. I want to see him raise it a step and win the Milwaukee Bucks a game or two in this series by himself. 18 points and 4 for 12 from the line, that's really not going to cut it. It really isn't. And I believe in this guy, man. I know he could do it, but after a tough game one, it's going to be very interesting to see how he bounces back. And then the last series we'll be breaking down in the Eastern Conference. How about the Boston Celtics beating the Toronto Raptors yesterday in Game 2 of their series by a final score of 102-99? And with this win, the Celtics now take a 2-0 lead over the defending NBA champion Toronto Raptors. A couple things stood out for me in this game. Number one, Jason Tatum out here dropping 34. Phenomenal. He's a top 10 player in the league. He is knocking on the door of being a superstar, and he's only 21. I picked Boston to win this series in 7 before the series started. Maybe they get it done earlier, but I think Jason Tatum is a phenomenal player, and there aren't many other guys that I would want to build my team around right now in the NBA for the future than him. The other thing that really stood out to me in this game for the Boston Celtics is this. How about Kemba Walker? It was not a very well-played game by Kemba. He was he just had horrible stretches. His exact shooting numbers were horrific. I'll get them for you now. He just hit in crunch time. He just hit a couple really clutch shots. And when you look at Kemba, he's really the difference for Boston, and he's been the last couple games, when you look at Boston not having Kyrie anymore. But here's the thing. When you look at what he did yesterday, his exact shooting numbers, I have them up right now. So Kemba Walker yesterday from the field went 6 for 18 and 1 of 8 from 3. And he still had 17 points and scored on a nasty crossover on Serge Ibaka. That was beautiful. And for me, the reason why I picked the Boston Celtics to win this series before it even started was because I thought the top three of Tatum, Walker, and how about Jaylen Brown? One of the 5 most underrated players in the league is Jaylen Brown for me. He's phenomenal. He could play for my team any day of the week. His athleticism is absurd. Marcus Smart was also phenomenal for the Celtics last night. That one stretch late in the fourth quarter where he just hit 5 threes in a span of 2 minutes, including that and 1 3 that gave the Boston Celtics the lead, and they never really looked back from there. He was phenomenal, and he was in that fourth quarter one of the main reasons why the Celtics ended up winning that game. Boston ended up outscoring Toronto 32-21. Looking at this game from Toronto's perspective, you guys heard me. The reason why I picked Boston to win this series before the series started was because I looked at Boston's top 3 of the 3 guys I mentioned previously and looked at it and I said, those are 3 closers. I trust Jaylen Brown's ability to score in the last 2 to 3 minutes of a game. Same with Jason Tatum, same with Kemba Walker. On Toronto, as much as I like Pascal Siakam, he's not really that much of a pure scorer yet. And he's kind of struggled in this series for Toronto. He really didn't play well in Game 1. And last night he was all right. He was 6 of 16 from the field, 17 points. But if Toronto wants to win a championship, which right now, those are their fans' expectations. I'm sure that's Nick Nurse's expectations. And I'm sure it's the players' expectations. If they want to win a championship, then they're going to need Siakam to really elevate his game, like he did in the playoffs last year and like he did throughout the regular season. He's capable of doing it, but let's see what happens. Lowry and Van Vliet were both not great last night, man. Kyle Lowry was 0 for 7 from 3. Van Vliet was 3 of 12. Combined, that's 3 of 19 from 3. Those 2 guys are going to need to be better. And the fact is that Toronto, even with all of those guys really not playing well at all, they still almost had it, and they should have had it. Serge Ibaka played really well off the bench. And how about OG Anunoby dropping 20 points? And that's the thing if you're Toronto, where when you look at this game, you get scared. OG Anunoby, a guy that's really more known for his defense as opposed to his scoring, he hit 4 threes in this game. And Toronto still with a Toronto was up by 8 heading into the fourth quarter and lost. That's very uncharacteristic for Nick Nurse's Raptor teams not to get the job done in crunch time. But maybe the playoffs is really the first place where we look at everything and we say to ourselves, all right, as much as we love Nick Nurse as a coach, as much as we respect the Raptors organization, without Kawhi Leonard, it's going to be very hard for this team to win a championship. As good as you are in the regular season, you need that closer. I think Milwaukee's learning that lesson too right now. And for me, Toronto just doesn't really have that guy. And Boston right now is looking to be in a very good spot. I think whoever it is, Boston, Milwaukee, Boston, Miami, that would be a great series. Same with Toronto. I think, before this round started, I really said to myself, any of the 4 teams in the Eastern Conference could win and come out of the Eastern Conference. And I still believe that. I wouldn't say Toronto. Right now, I would say Toronto is probably the most unlikely to do it. But they're still in the conversation. I'm not counting them out because they're down 2-0. But I was surprised they didn't bounce back yesterday. It will be very interesting to see how this series goes. Once again, I picked Boston in 7 before it started. Right, if you were going to make me pick the number of games right now, I think Toronto still wins 2 games. I would say Boston in 6. I think it will at least be interesting. So that's going to do it for the last segment of today's show.